If you're going to teach a class on economics, why aren't you talking about investment? It's just
I
like that's
agree.
something they'll breeze over. It's something everybody needs to know. And I think, like when we're kids, it doesn't sound cool to go to like 9 yard sales on a weekend. Like that's what I was doing. And I'm like, this sucks. But when I look back, I was learning so much.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else. With your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grinzik. Across me, as always, John Cohen. How we doing?
Doing good. New year, same problems.
Some things don't change.
Some things don't change. I thought I'd wake up and it'd be easy sailing with no headaches, but that's not the case. So
I guess that the new decade, the new year, this isn't a magical flip of the switch.
No, not a magical flip of the switch, but my resolutions look like they're possible now, right? I'm going to lose weight and go to the gym, and I'm 0 for 2. It's January 2nd.
Well, that's good. I don't like resolutions, so I have none.
No, I don't either. I'm not a resolution guy.
Me neither. But cool. We'll jump right into it. Got a good guest on today. A little bit of different backstory than some other people. Dipped his toes in a lot of different things, so I think it'll be interesting how he's gone in and out of real estate over the years and kind of his background and experience and how some of that other stuff is translated. But I'll let him kind of introduce himself. So, Jonathan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for having me. I appreciate it. So my name is Jonathan Greene. I am a real estate investor. Right now I'm in West Orange, New Jersey, and I've been in real estate investment literally my whole life. People think that means you start when you're in your 20s, but I was probably started with my dad when I was about 5 years old. He used to drag me into foreclosed homes, and I was the one who would climb through the windows and open the door. Because like now it's much different with the MLS and the internet. Like that's not how it was back when I was learning about it. You would just get a list from the courthouse, and my dad would stop at any FSBO sign or anything that looked disheveled and would just knock on the door. Mm-hmm. So he was doing this stuff, and honestly, I didn't even know what I was learning until much later. So I was just part of real estate investment, and then I was just eventually my dad passed away now 14 years ago, and my sister and I took over the properties. But even when I was younger, he had kind of started to involve me in the management end. So I was calling on unpaid renters when I was home from college in my 20s. That was my job. He would, he'd show me the list, and I'd say, are these, this is 8 months behind. He said, oh yeah, he was a nice guy. So he would just let people go forever. So I would come home in the summer and berate them until, we would get at least close on the rent. And then I went into other careers. I was an attorney for 10 years, a prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney. And then I was in the art world for 6 years. Then I was teaching university. And then I actually decided to get my real estate license about more than 5 years ago, when it finally dawned on me, like, what the hell am I doing with all these other careers? I know everything about real estate, and I'm not putting it to use. I had always been passively investing, but I never looked at it as like a business. It was always a side business, and we were always long-term hold prospects. So it wasn't like we weren't out searching for property. It's like the majority of my, quote, good deals before I knew that I was actually doing it was just smartly buying homes in appreciating area, living in them for a little while, getting bored, and then moving out, and upgrading it while I was there. And then I started flipping a little bit. And, in real estate, I just finally only recently got back into doing it, the investment side, as a full-time business. So it's been an interesting ride, but I've seen every part of the real estate industry from the oldest point of view, and I think that helps me. But it definitely causes some arguments in in things like the forums and public spaces where every single person on earth right now wants to be a real estate investor and thinks that it doesn't take any skill or knowledge. So that it irks me, to say the least. But it is what it is. I think there's a lot to learn, and I think everybody can do it. It's just about how are you going to approach it and what your goals are.
So it's funny you say that, because when I when I not first started, we used to host an event, and I think we'll start it again shortly, but we used to host an event, maybe.
We'll see.
And for 2 years, anyone could do it, anyone could do it, anyone could do it. And then I just flipped a switch probably about 6 months ago, probably before that. And I just started telling people the truth. And not that I wasn't telling them the truth. I said, guys, you can do it. Anyone can do it,
Right.
but you can't just do it. You need to either educate yourself, get your feet wet, do something. And then, I flipped a switch because I got fed up and sick and tired of everyone telling everybody they can do it.
Well,
and I basically went the complete other ways. Yeah, I went the other way. I basically just started telling people, guys, you're going to fail if you do it. Or I would say, just go do it. And yeah, sure, do it. It's a great idea. Because I don't think there's enough people out there that are setting expectations the right way. I think everyone, especially in today's generation where every 20-year-old kid wants to be CEO of Google and they think that they're just as good as them and there's no hard work involved. But
exactly.
There is hard work. I mean, I joke around when I used to knock on doors in Philadelphia, like to the side because it was dangerous. It's like, I'm not saying that you have to go buy those properties or you could buy Class A properties, whatever it is, but it's not as easy as you download an ebook and you go buy a 400 unit property.
That's literally, we all know from Bigger Pockets, and that's why I crack back on it so much. It gets really annoying. Like, I want to help people who want to learn, but I don't want to help everyone who's just getting into the business because they think, oh, it's simple and I can buy 26 properties with no money down and it's going to be easy. I mean, it's ludicrous. And I love Bigger Pockets, but it's also selling it to everybody can do this. And that's a problem because I don't believe in no money down investing. Those are lucky deals. I don't believe in a lot of the stuff that they preach. So when I come in, and just like you said, I always tell it straight. And, maybe my delivery isn't the way that they want, but like that's what they need. In a growth era of participation trophies, which are fine for kids' sports, it's not okay for real estate investment to pat everyone on the back and say, you're doing a great job. Hey, sure. You can do it. Sure, you have $1,000 to your name. You can be an investor. And honestly, some people can, but you have to go in with the right mindset. It's like, like you're baby investor who just steps to the table and wants to learn. To do it the right way, you figure out what your skill set is and you offer it to an investor. Like, I can help you. I can bird dog. I can do things for you. But a lot of people just step to the table and like, I want a mentor. Yeah. Okay, what do you have to offer me? Why am I going to spend my time mentoring someone who has nothing to offer? Because I have other things to do. I have a lot of businesses. So I want to help someone and I'd like to help as many people in the forums. I like that in messages, but I really think that it's a convoluted system now. I think everybody thinks they can do it and it's like fun and we're all going to have a party together. But if you look in there and you read what these people are writing, it's insane. They're like, well, I've analyzed, 50 deals, and then I'll chime in and say, how many properties have you seen? And they're like, oh, I haven't seen any. I'm just analyzing deals from a computer. Say, great, throw all your money and burn it up because you're never going to learn anything just doing that. The calculators are for after you know what costs what, or else it's just like a video game. You're just pumping in numbers. And with the calculator, what they do is when you're new, you want to make a deal. So you just start adjusting the spreadsheet so it fits, and then you lose all your money. And that's the thing. Like you said, that's what they don't want to hear. But like, it's like a big investment. It's the biggest investment. So I don't know why everybody's so cavalier and thinks it's, it's called investment for a reason. And usually investment comes with capital. So the all these courses and books about doing it with no money down, that's not realistic for most people.
Yeah, I think several things came to mind, but very quickly, I think it is easy to do it. I think it's not easy to do it well because there's plenty of people right now that are buying, especially in our space, multifamily deals, and they're doing tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, but doesn't mean, it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years to see results. So you can get away with it for that first couple of years until the deals start, don't do well, kind of get away with it up front. It's not like, you flip a house, you don't sell it in 6 months. People are then like, okay, I'm not going to give you a hard money loan anymore. So I think for us a little bit, I do think it's easy to do and to get into it. I think it's very hard, or not very hard, but it's hard to do it well. Yeah, and I think the problem is too, there's so much capital available from uneducated investors right now.
Yep.
And that's where I think it was very interesting where you started talking about, no money down investing. I've been harping on people for the last 12 months about the debt world and how, a deal with 50% debt and 100% debt, they both return 15%. It's not apples to apples. It's not the same deal. They're completely, totally different. And when you started talking about that, I was having a conversation with my roommate when we were out to New Year's. So, it's the second. And he works for like a bank, and he works on like their risk desk. Mm-hmm. And he always asks me whenever I talk about deals, he's always like, well, what's the risk? How do you measure the risk? And I tell him about break-even occupancy and the debt and stuff like that. And he's like, you guys don't really measure risk. Like, you don't have something to measure it up against the same way you do with returns, basically. And I've thought about it a lot. And I was like, that kind of makes sense. I can't point to like, here's, one or two or three metrics. It's like, okay, here is your risk associated with it, the same where you have the return, because people just flip to what's the number I'm going to make. There's no opposite side of the coin for me. That's like, what's my risk associated with it? Show me that.
Yeah, but like a lot of that is all new. The calculations that are associated with real estate now are something I still don't do. I don't use any of the acronyms. I think it's all ludicrous. I don't, you have people talking about cap rates on 2-family properties. That's not that's not what a cap rate is. It's just like they get so involved in the lingo that they don't even know what they're talking about. So, you can run numbers all day, but if you don't know what the numbers are, you don't know how much it's going to cost to remove asbestos, or if you have a water leak, or how much a furnace is, because people are saying, they're like, oh, I'll get a deal, I'll get an FHA loan. And then I say, well, how much in reserves do you have? Oh, I'm going to house hack. I don't need reserves. What do you mean you don't need reserves? Because when you put it in the calculator, it gives you a monthly reserve amount, so, but I said, like, you can't even go into this if you don't have at least 10 grand, and that's probably going to go away in the first month when, because it's like invariable. If you've done this long enough, you buy any house, whether you're going to live it or not, the second that you close, something breaks and it's 5 grand. It's always that way. So I just think that it's creating a world of unprepared investors who are all, boisterous and sure, people have money, but they're making bad deals and they're pushing prices up in areas that the prices should not be that high, because they're making stupid purchases because they want to be an investor, but that doesn't mean you're going to do a good flip. I mean, you can tell a bad flip the second you walk in and you're like, oh geez, this isn't going to sell. And that doesn't help the business at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same for us. That's the other thing I've been beating people up about, is like, everybody wants to talk cap rates, but it's cap rates. I don't even care about anymore as much, because it's so subjective. I get deals that are saying, 7.5 cap, but their expenses are so much lower than we would operate or the market would operate. It's a fake number, or they're taking expenses and they're adjusting for market to try to make the cap rate look better.
Exactly.
And it's like, even not even on the take out the duplex side, even in the, the commercial world where we're buying, 10, 15, $20 million properties, it's still bullshit. It's still all make believe and people just justifying. You go on CoStar and they get comments from the buyer, the seller, and the broker, and every single one of them lists a different cap rate. And you're like, okay, well, which one is it?
Because none of it's true. I mean, It's exactly what you're saying. So none of the, if you're doing off-market deals, especially on big apartment buildings, you're not getting like a perfect spreadsheet with everything done. Like you're getting like, I think this is what they're never even correct. So you're putting in fake numbers into a fake formula and you're deciding cap rate wasn't invented really for small multifamilies, but if you look in there, that's what everybody's using. There's someone will say, well, I want to invest in 2 families. What's the cap rate? I'm like, what do you care what the cap rate is? It's all nonsense. Unless you're going to get from the off-market seller not just what he says the rent roll is, but you need to see the bank accounts to see the money coming in from those renters, so you don't pick up a deadbeat renter. He can tell you, here's the lease, it's $1,200 a month in unit 1, but if you don't see the bank account to verify that they've been paying, you're going to be on the hook taking someone who hasn't paid in 6 months. And that's what, buying multifamilies, that a lot of those people, they own 1 property or 2 properties. They're not a business. They don't know how to run a business. And the financials that you get, are not correct. So you have to become adept at eyeballing everything. And that's why I tell anybody, like, if you haven't seen 25 properties, you better not be buying anything. I would never buy anything until I've at least, I don't care if you're just seeing garbage properties, you just have to see them to know what the hell it looks like in your market at 100 grand, at 200 grand, at 50 grand, what this renovation looks like. You go into flips and they're just doing research online, and that literally will never help you be an investor. All that stuff helps after you know what you're doing, because then you know what the terms mean. But I mean, come on, right now, like 75% of people are just doing online research. It's why people are so excited about investing out of state, which for a new investor is just a cataclysmic blunder to me.
Yeah.
I'm fine with out of state investing when you know what you're doing and you have boots on the ground, people you really know. But like, you know, you can read the posts all day. I want to invest. I live, you know, in Brooklyn or San Diego. It's too expensive. So I'm going to invest in, you know, the middle of America where I don't know anyone. I don't know anything. And once I click on a post, everyone's going to tell me they're an expert in the area. And I'm going to believe everything everyone says. You know, hand them the money and you're going to lose all your money. So
I was talking to someone the other day that's from Florida, and they're like, yeah, I can't find anything, so I'm investing out of state.
Okay.
It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
There's everything in Florida. I lived there for 14 years. There's no spot in Florida that's not investable. And I would still, other than big cities, because I think like New York City and Brooklyn and big cities like Chicago, investing's different there because you're not dealing with single family houses. Any area that's like has single family traditional houses and not, you know, built on apartment buildings and condos and co-ops, you can invest. You're just not finding the deals. They just don't want to do the work to find the deals. I mean, that's
doing the work. You hit the nail on the head. It's doing the work. It's everybody wants to read a book and press the easy button, and people don't want, because I say it all the time. The biggest challenge for me switching over from what I was doing in Philadelphia to what we do now is that even when I was a broker for Marcus & Millichap, even when I was doing residential stuff in the city, you know, I tell people all the time, and I was taught, you know, just go see property. Forget fucking underwriting it or clicking a calculator online or downloading a pro. I love when people say, can you send me your pro forma? What is it going to do for you? My numbers don't mean anything. It's totally different. So I don't send it to anybody, but I do. You got to go see property. Go look at a house that's 60 years old and go look at 100 of those houses. You're going to see some in really good condition, some in poor condition, but you have to go physically drive properties. You know, and when I first started, I used to print out Google Maps, or not even Google Maps. I would print out maps or get maps, and I would just highlight streets and blocks and drive down every single block. And if I saw a house, I'd put a dot on it and circle it and write the address down. But you had to go physically do it, and that's time consuming, and people don't like time consuming. Nobody wants to spend the time to see property. And, you know, I tell people all the time, you want to know the best time to go fix and flip and look for shitty houses? Wake up at 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday or Sunday when everybody's home. Yeah. And go drive properties. And if you see something dilapidated with no car, probably something you want to start with, not the MLS that lists, you know, start with the MLS and you're like you're the 1 millionth person looking at it. Yeah. Go drive at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, go drive an area and you'll really see a potential deal or not, because no one's.
It's just this is exactly what you said, that they think that it's easy. You know, and the people who've been doing it, like, it's fun. Like, if you're good at it, it's fun. Sure. You know, people think like, oh, I'm going to go drive for dollars for the first time tomorrow. I should come up with like 3 or 4 deals. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You're going to drive for months and months. You're never going to talk to anyone because you're too scared to go to the door, and you're just going to drive in circles. But you have to learn about it. And then, like, for people who don't have a license, I said, go to Meetup, become best friends with an agent who likes to invest, and you can just go with them. That's how you get started, because they always say like, oh, well, I don't have access, so I can't see it. No agents want to show me properties. Okay, well, what's your value proposition for an agent to show you properties? Do you have a pre-approval? Do you have any money? They're not just going to show you for fun. Like, what are you bringing to the table? And I think that's the problem with all of like modern investing and how it gets commodified in all these forums and online. It's that like nobody wants to have their own value proposition of what they're going to bring to the table. They just want to be an investor. So they say, hey, I'm a rental property investor, but you don't have any properties and you've never been inside a property. You're not a rental property investor.
I also think people, and this, I don't think people have a real defined reason on why they want to do it too. I think people want to do it because their cousin's doing it, or people want to do it because their friend does it, or people want to do it because they see a podcast. I don't think people really truly understand why they want to do it, because it doesn't start out as a high paying job. It starts out as a below average paying job. You're not going to make money for quite some time. And I think that's where people don't realize, like, the motivation that you need to go out and drive properties for 8 months before you even think of seeing a deal that you like is not fun, and you need money to do that. Unless you just have a ton of money in the bank, your parents are going to give it to you.
But I mean, think about how people view wholesaling now. Like you can see it all day. People's like, I have no money, I'm going to become a wholesaler. And I'll say, well, you still have to make the deal happen. Why is someone going to sell to you as the first mark in the wholesale if you can't close the deal? And they're complaining like, oh, that's not how wholesaling works. Yeah, it is, because no one's ever going to sell to you again if you're the first person in and you say, I have no money, I have no contact, so if I can't find anyone, the deal's off. Like that, that's going to be your wholesale.
Tough sell. Tough pitch.
You don't have to have the money, but you need to create backers so you know you can sell it. And somebody said the other day, it was ludicrous. I read it. It said like, well, I haven't started making my buyer's list yet because I don't have a property. And I'm like, what the hell are you going to do when you have a property? That's when you're going to look for buyers. It takes a year to develop a buyer's list and make the relationships. It's just, from what we've been talking about, it's the same. They don't, they're not thinking of it as this. I think they just think it's an easy way to make money. And maybe it looks cool because people do it, but it's so much different than that, and it's so much harder to be good at it. But we said I still believe there's not one person who can't do it if they do it the right way. You don't need to have any education. You just need to have to figure out. It doesn't matter if you graduated high school. You just have to figure out and learn from people who know what they're doing and do it the right way.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, just context for you, the people we're talking about was me at the beginning. So the way I got involved was my mom and cousin bought a flipping course, and I got hooked. Thought we were going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars pushing buttons and not swinging hammers, and didn't flip a house ever, and stopped after 8 months. And that's when we moved. And, that was before I met John, but that's kind of when I met him, and we ended up partnering on some other stuff because we were like, okay, this isn't working. This isn't how it actually works. But that was everybody there that also bought the course. Everybody blamed it on, the systems don't work, or the calculations don't work, or it's too high cost of living area, or the margins are too thin. And that's all true. But, I'm very adamant saying like it's fully on us. Like we just failed to execute, and we switched too early. Like if we had a guy on who's flipping, 100 houses a year in our area. So it's being done. Like there's proof was right there. I sat right next to him, got, asked questions. So that could have been us, but it was just, we didn't want to go out and drive homes at 6:30 in the morning. We didn't want to go out and drive, for dollars. We just wanted to go on the MLS. We wanted to push a button, buy a house, push another button to hire a contractor. That contractor does all the work. And then we push another button to list it. It sells. And then I get my $100,000 in the bank in, a quick 6 months, and it just,
and you didn't leave your house because it's just all so
it was
easy.
just like,
there's a podcast.
That was literally me.
And there's a podcast now that I'm not going to mention because I do like the guy on the podcast, but he literally said, it was, and they do it frequently. It's like once a week. He literally said today that you can flip houses and never have to leave your house. It's all price per square foot.
But see, the whole point is you're never going to be good at something if you don't like it. Like I love houses. I like to look at them. Like I've got like 7 things I'm looking at tomorrow. There's almost no chance any of them are good. I just like it. I like to go. I go with my friends who are also investors. We just pick apart the houses. And then if it's even remotely okay, we just put in, a bad offer. I mean, it's not a bad offer, but it's just like, these are MLS properties. So I still like to look at MLS because I have my own off-market business, which generates leads that are just for me. But like, I just like it. And if you don't like it and you're just sitting behind it, you're just interested in passive investing, which is fine. But then invest in turnkeys, don't do anything, but you could be making so much more money. They wonder like, the thing that I see, among many others that drives me the most crazy is the scale up that people look at. And it's like, well, I want to have 100 units making all $100 a month each. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that's ridiculous. Who wants to make $100 a month? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to make you any money. If a furnace breaks and all 100 units are underwater, or the market tanks, and if you're highly leveraged, you're done. I mean, that's what happened in 2008. A bunch of people had bought, all of the big apartment complexes in Texas and Florida, and they just got demolished if they didn't know what they were doing. It's
no, 100%. I do want to take a little bit of a step back because we went right off the boat and we didn't really dive too much into your story. I think it was really interesting because I think most people that are in real estate now would have loved to had, your resources growing up and that experience super early. And I thought it was super interesting to hear that, like, okay, that wasn't the industry you decided to go into. Can you talk a little bit about, from what you remember, coming into the professional world and why you didn't go into the real estate world from day one or go into the quote unquote family business or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, well, no, my dad was a lawyer too, but he he didn't make any money as a lawyer. Like I just didn't know what was going on. When I was just a kid, and we would always be going to yard sales. And then I'm like, why the hell is he talking to the owner of this house? Because every yard sale he went to, he was seeing if they were selling a house. And it's just like, it didn't really dawn on me until I got older. And then when I went to law school, and then when I was just graduating, no, I think it was right when I was started law school, I bought my first condo. And this is where it started to click in, because I was in Florida and it was a development. And there was like 7 or 8 units on the market. They all looked exactly the same. It's typical Florida development. So I just looked at the one that was the cheapest, bought it, walked in, painted it, and recarpeted it. And then I moved in like a year and made 25 grand. And I was like, wait a minute. This is what the hell my dad was doing growing up, because every time we got the house the way that we liked, he's like, we're moving. And we're like, what the hell are you talking about? This is our favorite house ever. He's like, yeah, well, we're going to make X amount. And I was like, didn't get it as a kid. But when that switched, then I really started to focus on talking to him. And I had a good maybe 10 years of working with him and my sister on the business all together to figure out like all the things he did wrong, which is a lot, because he was too nice, but he was also like the type of guy who's like, oh, your plumbing's broke, I'll just put gum on it. He just like that was old school investing. So I think when I had that moment, like, holy shit, all I did was do carpet and paint and I just made 25,000, like could make sense. And then slowly over time, I just kept liking it more. And then when I got my license, that's what really like exploded. Like, why the hell wasn't I doing this? And that put me back into focusing on the investment full time now.
I joke around my parents because I'm like, why didn't you guys teach me this when I was younger? My parents are the best. They literally are the most supportive people in the world. Gave me everything I wanted as a kid. Made me earn it, but I joke around. I played baseball in college, and they joke around saying it's the most expensive baseball team you ever played on, right? You don't play for the Yankees. But I said, well, it wouldn't have been the most expensive baseball team if you would have taught me about real estate investment when I was younger. They're like, oh no, play baseball, play basketball. They encouraged all that stuff. And I go back. I'm like, guys, I'm 32 years old now. You should have taught me about this when I was 10. Like I have a 10-month-old daughter, and you started by saying, I was the one that crawled through the windows. I'm thinking, always. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah,
I'm going to start her. Well, she's already crawling. She could definitely get into the house. Like I'm thinking about that
just
now.
Tape
like,
a GoPro to her forehead.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. Like I wish. Like you said, you didn't even know what your father was doing, more or less. But, I wish, and I think people always, I wish that they would have given me that knowledge, because real estate investing and painting houses and carpet, they don't teach you that in school. They'd rather teach you about Abraham Lincoln, which is fine.
Nothing. Yeah, I don't think so. School's ridiculous. They should be teaching. If you're going to teach a class on economics, why aren't you talking about investment? It's just like that's something they'll breeze over. It's something everybody needs to know. And I think, like, when we're kids, it doesn't sound cool to go to like 9 yard sales on a weekend. Like that's what I was doing. And I'm like, this sucks. But when I look back, I was learning so much. I watched my dad, and my dad was like a wuss negotiator. When I was an attorney, I was like a hardcore negotiator, this definitely helps me a lot in how I negotiate now, which is super friendly, but it's one offer and that's it. I'm walking away. And I think that helps. But I watch all these things happen. And I think that if you're just present, even if you kind of don't want to do it, later you look back and go like, oh my God, like I learned so much from my dad that I had no idea that I was learning. And I did have, I had it more fortunate, but my dad grew up with nothing. He figured out all of this stuff on his own. I was just fortunate enough to be able to learn and watch what he was doing, even though I didn't get it. So I know when I look at new investors and they're coming at it like, I don't have any money, how do I get into this? There's a lot of ways to get into it. But like I've been saying the whole time is, what's your value? you have to have something. Everybody needs their mini elevator pitch if they want to get a mentor or get involved. Like if you two guys didn't meet, like maybe it wouldn't have happened like that, you know? Maybe,
No,
maybe, you know, maybe Chris stops before. And that's what I think is interesting, because sometimes like you go into it and like we all give up too early because it's hard. But if you just make a couple good contacts in the business, which is going to meetups and meeting the right people, not the people who are trying to sell you shit the whole time. It's like the people who are like you, but not like everybody's super green. You know, you eventually get to the part where you're like, well, you know what, this is actually fun. And if I have someone to do it with, it's much more fun. I mean, I love going with my friends looking at properties because it's just so much, it's a ton of fun.
You can enjoy yourself. So I joke around, all young kids, and not that I'm old by any means, or maybe I am old in some eyes, but I tell people all the time, because what happens, and we had a kid quit recently and we're closing his deal this month. I tell people, young kids all the time, when you quit or when you stop making that call or when you stop making offers, there's going to be someone that's going to pick up the phone and that's going to be the next deal. So when I first started, it was, you know, I wanted to be the best at what I did and I didn't stop. It was, I loved doing it, but I always said, and I still say to this day, when you don't make that next cold call and you quit because it was 6 months and you didn't make your money or whatever it was, you realize that one of those deals that you called 6 months ago is going to come back to the table in a year from now, and you're not going to be fat. You have to have persist. You have to have it in a little bit, because it's easy to quit because it doesn't happen quickly. But real estate is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And if you get into it thinking that you're just going to start today and make everything online is, make 20 grand in 1 month doing nothing. You know, it happens. I'm not here to say it doesn't, but it's not the norm. The norm is, pounding your head against a wall and then finally something comes through. But you're right. You have to meet the right people, and to find the right person, you're going to have to talk to everybody. And then at some point you're going to come out on the other end. And then that's when the door is going to open. And then you have a good time looking at deals, underwriting deals, that's the fun part, but you got to get there.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing more fun than going to look at a deal and getting a great feeling about it, especially if you've seen like 5, 10, 20 worthless properties beforehand. And it's like the last one, you go see it and you just get like this awesome feeling about it. Like there's nothing better. Like you'll have the trips where you don't see it, and you'll have the trips where, you just see the good one right away. But when you go there and it's like, you go this one, you see it and you hate it, and then finally get to the one you really like and you get a good feeling, it's awesome. And all you want to do is talk about it. The flight home or the ride home or whatever it is.
I think, part of the point of knowing people is sometimes you go to deals and you're just like not looking at it the right way. Like some days your mind sets off. So when I go with my friends, sometimes they just point one thing out and I'm like, oh, holy shit, like that. I was missing the whole point. Like we can take down this wall and then we can move that. And like, that's going to be a 50 grand extra on the ARV, and that's the important thing. Like for people who aren't licensed, you don't really know any of the prices. Can't make any comps on Zillow. That's like 1/4 of the solds. So like for me, I know everything going in. Like if I have 7 properties tomorrow, I've already looked through RPR. I have all the values down. So I know going in when I'm counting the renovation costs. And that's more to what we've been talking about the whole time. That's just like putting in the work to know, like, I'm not just spinning my wheels when I go out there hoping that something falls. The bad ones sometimes are just as good as the good ones. It just depends on what the price point is, what you're looking at, what the block values are, and what the potential is. Because sometimes the worst properties are in a hot market, the real dirt ones are the only ones that's like you and 2 contractors, and they're low bidding. So you have to really figure out, like, can I outbid them? Is it going to be worth it? And it always is a risk. And I think that's, a lot of people they think they're not risk averse, but they really are, because they just want to make money. But like, if you're going to be good, you're going to take some risks. You can be careful, but you're going to take some risks.
But so my friend early on in the business told me, and I quote him and I say it all the time. He says, everyone says value add. Value add is in the eye of the beholder. If you see something that nobody else sees and it can be done, you obviously can pay maybe more, maybe less, whatever it is. But if you can see something that can be done that no one else does, like taking a wall down, or you can see the vision, that you can see the area getting better, whatever it is. But that's really value add. Value add's not what all the brokers send you today. And, you update the bathroom and get it, whatever. But the real value is in going there and seeing something that no one may see. And that's the thing that takes time, and you're going to have to tour properties to see that. And you're going to have to see deals that are on the market, deals that are selling, deals that are whatever it is. But you have to be able to see something that can help you either be competitive or not be competitive, saying, no, this is never going to work because there's nothing you can do. Or, no, I know that I can add a bathroom here, and a 4-bed, 1-2 bath is better than a 4-bed, 1 bath. And no one's going to look at it that way. I could pay an extra $50,000 or whatever it is. But that's, value add is if you see something that no one does, that's where you're going to be able to get either a really good deal, or you're going to know that, this one's not the right one for me.
Yeah. And another problem is the people who aren't looking enough, because they'll say you're new and you get an agent, 99% of agents know nothing about investing. They give you terrible advice because they just don't know. It's not their fault. They just want to sell a property. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, sure, you can get X amount. If you don't know the comps, you don't know the repair, you're just trusting someone with your life savings, basically. And that's where it's like the books and the courses are super helpful. But if you don't look at all that stuff in real life, you'll never know what it all means. It's like you can tell when someone's just talking theoretically because they just sent to give you like 18 acronyms and a calculation, and you're like, that's not anything. Like you don't know anything. You're just giving me the terms.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I like to tell, especially younger kids or people that are trying to get into it and they don't have the money, going back to what you were saying, instead of over leveraging yourself, it's go and get your license, get knowledgeable in investing, and be an agent for investors, because there's always a need for them. You go on Bigger Pockets and like every 10th post is, hey, I'm looking for an agent in such and such area. And if you can be a person that understands how an investor is going to look at a deal, you're not going to just bombard them with shitty properties that makes no sense, because there's a totally different way to look at it when you're an investor versus if you're just an end user, or even if you're an end user that's looking to upgrade a house. It's two very different outlooks on a property. So if you're coming in and you have no money, instead of trying to over leverage yourself and possibly go underwater and not knowing what you're doing, get educated, figure out how investors look at it, be a service to them. And then also, as you want to get into that investing role, now you've got unbelievable contacts that are already doing it in that area. And if you've provided a disproportionate amount of service to them over the past 6, 12, 18, 24, 36 months, they're going to be way more likely to help you get into the investing world than just being a random stranger off the street. Back to your point on, if I'm going to mentor someone, what value you're bringing, if you can be a great agent for them, bring them great deals, that's a tremendous value.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know why anyone who's young doesn't get their license if they're interested. Like, it's free access. You could go see 10 properties, vacant properties in a day and learn more than you will surfing forums. But your points are great, because that's how most partnerships start. If you don't have a ton of money and you're working on market as an agent, but you focus on investors, like eventually if you find enough deals, they're going to kick you in on one of these deals to get you started, because you've been finding the stuff and maybe you don't know how to find it at first. But I think that people forget that you learn a ton. Like, real estate class is not fun, but you learn about everything about real estate. If you pay attention, most people just don't pay attention because they're thinking like, oh, I don't care about riparian rights or easements. But you're going to care about these things, maybe not, the river stuff, but you're going to care about easements later. So you learn a ton going in, and that will set the table for, picking a niche. And investors is great if that's what you want to do. Everybody I say this, like, should I get my license? Yes. I mean, it doesn't cost a lot. If you can fit it into your time schedule with night, it's a no-brainer for young people, I think.
I say the same thing. It's I'm thinking about it. I'm like, just do it. You have nothing to lose. You have a couple $100, maybe $1,000, right? Your education and your time, that's all you have to lose, because it literally is a fingertip of just a world of information that you have at your fingertips. And if you provide the value to the right person, like you said, that's how partnerships are going to start. Say, hey, I'll be the investor. I'm going to be the investor agent. I'm not going to, the retail shit's the retail shit, right? You don't know, none of these retail agents, it's 45 and 50-year-old middle-aged women that just need something to do. They don't necessarily get it, right? Mm-hmm. But if you could be that investor side where you could pick up the phone and call old listings or whatever it is, you just have more information, and you have a tool that the rest of the people don't. So if you're just do it, just get your license, and whether you use it or not is irrelevant, but you still have the information, and information is key.
Yeah.
And you want to be an investor.
But even if you're not going to say you want to be an investor and say you don't want to work as an agent, like what if your friend tells you like, oh, I have a house to sell. What are you going to do? Say no? Like, what are you, stupid? If you have a license, like you're going to use it. Like you're going to use it. Your friend, you're new and your friend wants to get a rental. That's like free, quick money. Everybody thinks like, oh, well, I just want to do the big stuff, but they don't want to do the grunt work. And when you get your license, like there's a lot of grunt work that goes in, but if you're willing to do it, like if you're at work for a big brokerage, you can sit an open house pretty much any Sunday because none of us want to sit open houses. I don't sit my own open houses. It's boring. You know, there's opportunities for agents. It's just like you're always looking for the ones that are going to hustle. When I was on market, I built a team of, I think we were up to about 15 agents when I was at Sotheby's. And, you know, they just don't do the work. You know, even on the team, most agents just think the money's going to fall from the sky, just like new investors. So those businesses are tied together. There's no reason not to leverage what you're doing and do it all together. Just from a strict learning perspective, if you haven't seen any houses and you can't get in because you have no value to say, like, you can't buy anything. If you can't buy anything, an agent's not going to take you if you're not friends. Like, so you need, and you'll make friends in the class too. A couple of you get your license, you go look at properties together. It's just the short-term thinking. Like you said, Chris, in the beginning, like we've all been there. We start something and we're like, oh, I've been doing it for a month and I didn't get a deal. Like this sucks. And we give up. And, you know, I left the business altogether for a year because the business just drove me crazy, the on-market business more than anything. But like you said, with the lifespan of leads, when I came back after 1 year off, I got all my old off-market leads back into my system. And those are all the deals I'm working on now. One year it took for all of them to nurture themselves to be ready. All my stuff going out now is like, you know, once in a while someone calls back, but the lifespan of a lead is going to be, you know, about a year for off market because you're sending postcards to people who haven't really thought about selling most of the time. And then they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I will. Like, I live in California. Why do I have this stupid property in New Jersey? And that's who I want. But they're not ready to just turn it down. They have tenants. The tenant's leased for a year. So you have to really massage it. And if you give up, like you said, Chris, you look back later. And like you said, John, those are the deals that will get closed. Somebody else is going to close all those deals.
Right, and they're going to be the good ones. The one when you send out a postcard and the guy calls you back immediately, that is not a good deal 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10 times. The good deal is a guy that you work on for a year. And you know, he starts with a price of X and you get him all the way down to realistic. The good deals take time. The good deals are the most challenging to get to the finish line, but when they get there, it was worth it. And the one that you send out and the guy calls you back and says, yes,
that means they want over market value. I mean, like, and that if you don't have the experience, like you don't even know how to deal with sellers. And I was saying to someone in the forum, like, it is a big deal when you go try to be a wholesaler and you don't know what the hell you're doing, because after you ruin that deal, they're not going to talk to any other wholesalers. They're not going to talk to agents because you bungled the thing up so badly. So like, it does play a role into how my business goes. If there's people coming before me, almost every time I meet a seller, they tell me a story about some stupid person off market who was trying to like super lowball them. And like, my realistic goal is I'm not trying to close it at the lowest price. I'm trying to solve a problem that the seller is having. And if I can solve the problem, I'll say, I'll do it. I don't need to try to get the lowest price. I'll give them more than the last person if I know, but I'm still going to make it worth my while. And a lot of times when you have your license, you're in a great position off market because I'm saying like, oh, how much do you want for your property? I know that like my number's 350 and they tell me 400. And I say, oh, great. You want market value. If you want market value, I'm licensed also. We can just put it on the market. And they never want to put it on the market. That's why they called you back on the postcard. But you're giving them this option. Oh, by the way, if you want to go on the market, that's what will get you the 400. But we're going to have to do an open house. We're going to do a lockbox. We're going to put a sign in. Your tenants are going to have to be ready. And then they're already like quitting. Okay. And their number just went down 25. And that's where you still have to keep working on it. And just like not walking away from the business, you still have to stick in with the contact, but you always have to walk away from like, I never close on my first thing. That would be ridiculous. I go in, they want 600. I say, I'd do 500, but if you want 600, I'll try to find you someone to close that deal. But like, I'm at 500 and I never will change ever. I'll ride that out, and they'll still be a year later, they'll come back and say, okay, yeah, 500 sounds pretty good, because they've tried everything else. And if you're in it long enough, there's so many people who don't have the money but are playing the game, and they can never close the deals. They'll say, oh, I'm going to close, I got the cash, and they don't close. So they want somebody who can close. So you have to show them the money and show them you're going to do what you said. And that's not beating them over the head and being mean to them. It's developing a real relationship with the seller and seeing, like, how am I going to help you solve this problem? Whether it's a foreclosure, or they want to move to Florida, or they need to be out fast and they are a hoarder's house. Like, hoarders' houses are the best because nobody else wants them. They think it's the worst. They're the best. You just get a cleanup crew. The stuff's all gone. And sure, there's disgusting stuff underneath, but like you're buying an investment property. So,
no, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's things like I tell, we have two people that cold call all the time, and I tell them all the time, if they're saying yes to your offer's too high.
Exactly.
Too high. It's too high out of the box. It should be lower, because you're not, even if you offend them, if you call them back in 24 hours, they're going to have no recollection it was you that called them. And if the offer's offensive, you're not making offers to be offensive. You're making offers to solve problems. And if you find a problem, and if you find the solution, you're going to get paid. If you can't, you're not going to be successful in this business.
Yeah, but I never give a number before they give a number. I'll do that, like, two cars going at each other. I'll never blink, because I want to know what they realistically think it's worth. And when they come in super high, I just laugh. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. And then they'll say, well, what's your offer? I'm like, well, tell me what what you really want. Just tell me what you want. And there has been time where I've had that conversation, and like, their number is good. I just finished attorney review and doing inspections on Wednesday on one like that. They had gotten an offer at 200. They said, their buyout on the bank's like in the 190s. And I said, they have to move, but the ARV is like 360 renovated, or 300 if I do nothing. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you 225. They're happy. I'm happy. We're going to close a deal. Like, there wasn't anything big about it. Just trying to figure out how you're going to get the thing done.
Nope. So are you buying stuff in-state, out-of-state, all over now? Or
right now, I'm just focused in New Jersey, but I have properties. I used to have them in Florida, and now I have them. We have some in California and some in New York, besides our personal residences. But we're trying to. So in 18 months, I'm moving to California. So this off-market system that I'm running is a practice, which I'll probably leave the system running. But then I'm taking the system. I'm kind of prepping all of the processes and systems so that when I move, I'll be ready to go. So I'll actually start marketing where I'm moving in California. I'll probably start marketing in about 6 months to give me a 1-year leeway on the postcards, because my sister and brother-in-law are out there, and I have 2 agent friends out there who will probably all end up working together, so they can do appointments in advance. Yep. So that will set the table. Right now I'm just looking where I'm at in New Jersey, but I'm open to deals everywhere. It's just that to do out of state for me, I need to see the area, be comfortable with the area. So if I was going to invest in a new area, like all the hot markets that people talk about, I would go there and stay at least a week, learn everything that I could before I even thought about making a deal. Because it's just not. I want to know people in the area, and I'm never going to trust an investment to people I only know online. It's just not for me.
100%.
And I'm sure part of the reason you're giving yourself the year is that those marketing efforts are going to take a bunch of time to bear any fruits, and put the onus on some other people to kind of pick up the grunt work a little bit until you get there. But it makes a ton of sense. Yeah,
well, my systems are set up in a way where I only get involved when the lead is warm and asking me to call. So that makes it, but VAs do the work in between. Like, so I'll just give you a quick breakdown of how my system works. Postcard goes out. It has a number. When they call back the number, it goes to an automated voicemail. If they hang up, I get their phone number, and then my VAs start calling them back on the hang up to find out if they're calling to curse me out, which is like 50-50 when you're mailing. Like 50% of the people just want to tell you to go to hell, and that's fine. But my VAs, they do a good job. And then once the VA makes contact of any kind, if they've had a discussion, then it gets transferred to me, and so every single time I get on the phone, it's warm. They're saying, yeah, I want the investor to call me. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the person who's gonna buy. And that makes the reason I got so frustrated with on market real estate is there's just so many leads coming in and they all suck. Yeah. So even in off market, I don't want shitty leads. So I built the system. So sure, I have to spend a little more to make the system work like that. But it makes my time all that much more pleasurable. So every time I hate phone calls. They're the worst. I do not like them. But with the way that I have the system set up, it plays to what my skills are, which is good communication, but only when somebody's ready to have a conversation. And then if I'm doing my calls, almost every call is like at least okay. And that's like an anomaly in the real estate game. I never cold call because it just doesn't do anything for me. I can't. It just drives me crazy. I quit after like one.
Yeah, on the single family or smaller, it's harder because you can't. I tell the two kids that cold call for us all the time. You can't convince someone to move out of their house if they weren't expecting to move out of their house, unless you give them a ridiculous number. So to pick up the phone and cold call single family houses to try and fix and flip. I mean, if the guy has no intentions of leaving, what are you going to tell him to make him move?
Well, I think that cold calling, it depends how you build your list.
Yeah.
So it depends.
Correct.
If you're building a good list, at least you're already hedged your bets in the right direction. But for cold callers, like you have to know your list. That's why I like people who use RedX and Mojo and those things. It moves too fast. Like you don't know, like you have to know if you're calling like a 20 plus years owned, no mortgage and out of state owners list, you have to be able to recite, I see, look, you live in California, you've owned this property since 1989. I see you paid 70 for it. Like it's worth 300. Don't you want to dump this thing? If you know those, you're already building a relationship. And that's what I think cold calling people, if you're cold on your end, then of course it's going to be cold. But if you're warmed up, and you're working from a good list, it's going to be much better than the alternative of like phone book calling,
Yep. And I tell people it's like, because we're sending out a lot of mailers now, and weeding out the guy that's going to curse you out and no to, I'll sell or whatever it is, like just taking those calls off the table and just putting them in the database and then, having someone else follow up on it. It makes life so much easier to just say, is it a good number or not? Do you want to sell, yes or no? And if it's no, fuck you, get out of here. Put that guy, follow up in 6 months or whatever it is. Or you just shift that one little tweak someone can make to their business will just make you feel so much better about your day, knowing that you're not just getting smashed over the head for 8 hours by answering calls from people just ripping you.
Yeah, but there's another good point in there because every no isn't a no in real estate because they get, off market. If you're running a good list, other people are running a similar list. So they've been inundated with calls. It's like when you're calling an expired on market, like you're the fifth person who called. Of course they don't want to talk to you. But so for me, the smartest things on market are to call expireds 3 months after they expire. Because nobody's calling them anymore. And the same thing with the owners, you're just trying to be different. So if you know all the data and you're not trying to lowball them, you have to expect a little bit of blowback. And that's why it's good for me. The VAs take the blowback. And then when I get on the phone, I still think that you as a caller, whether you're the cold caller or you're the investor, you have to be tough. If someone's rude to me, I just tell them to fuck off. I don't care.
I tell people all the time, you sort of have to play a little bit of like a parrot or a mimic game. If they're going to be hard on you, like I joke around, like when I was a stockbroker prior to any of this, you gave it to people. It was just like the nature of the business. But here, people are so quick to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry." And I tell people, what you gotta punch them back. You can't just be punched all day long. You have to have a little fun with it, and you got to give it to them because, that's going to be different reaction than most people. If a guy tells you, you're fucking kidding me, you're crazy, give it to him a little bit. And you may be the guy that he says, wow, you know what? That's a different attitude. I like that.
Always. And if you know your data going into the calls, that's why it's so much better to make less calls, but be prepared for all the calls and knowing what you're going into, because those guys will start off with like, screw you, you don't have any money. And you're like, I'll send you my proof of funds right now. Just give me your number. I'll text it to you. You have to be ahead of them and say, they say 400 and you say, I'm looking at your house on, Google Street View. You don't even have a driveway. That happens around me. Like I won't buy a property without a driveway, but they'll say like they want market value. Like if you don't have a driveway and you have street parking, that's a drastic reduction in value over here. So the more that you know about their properties, I always have, when I'm calling, I always have the Google Map screenshot. If it's, if there's nothing else, I always want to be looking at the house. And they never get creeped out. I say, I'm looking at it now. It's like a brick front. It looks pretty good, because Google's pretty good about keeping it updated, at least close enough. And I think the more that you show that even if they get freaked out that backed at on them, you're like, look, I'm just doing my job. I'm prepared. Is anyone else prepared for the call, or are they just trying to get you to someone else? And that's where I think you will get past those people who you think are angry. They usually become great. I've had great relationships with people started off cursing me out, and I just took it and laughed and was like, yeah, I can see why you're annoyed. You probably got 50 calls this week. And then I explained to them why they're getting so many calls, how people build lists. And they always say, I never knew why I was getting calls. And that's how I get in the door. I just let them do it. I don't care. But yeah, I push back. Like you said, I don't think you can just sit there and be a punching bag like that. Then you're just going to quit after that call.
You're not going to make it very far. You're going to get punched out quickly.
You also have to try to, to your point where you said you shuffle and you follow up. You have to try different approaches. So, that person that you say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. The next time you punch them back a little bit and see how they react. And maybe they don't like that either. And then the next time you call them back, you try explaining, oh, hey, this is why you're getting calls and this and that. And that may be the approach that unlocks the door, because nobody else has tried that. But everybody else has tried being soft. Everybody else has tried being hard. They haven't tried explaining. And certain people react to different things. And yeah, if you mimic them, good chance they'll respond to that. But there's plenty of people that get punched back and they double down and get even more aggressive. So you gotta, just because one way didn't work and one conversation didn't go your way, doesn't even have to be the way you responded. It could be something totally ancillary that's going on in that moment that you just caught them at the wrong time.
Correct.
You call them in 6 months and they won $100 in the lottery and they feel like the king of the world and now they want more. You never know. So, you got to continue to try different ways to approach people.
Yeah. And on that point, that goes for the way that you communicate. I think that a majority of failures are people who like to communicate one way. Like, I won't talk on the phone. So people who try to get me to talk on the phone are going to get nothing. My voice message says, send me a text. So you have to be clear with sellers. What's your preferred method of communication? Because if everyone's calling them, maybe they like a text message. Maybe they'll give you their email. So I like getting the email. I send them an email. I can see if they've read it. And if they've read it, I know when I call back, like, okay, you're going to pretend like you didn't read it, but I know you read it.
Yeah.
So that because everyone hates getting phone calls, like I have a lot of success with text, but only after I've received permission from them to text them instead. Too many people are trying to come up with spam routines for text now, and it only works in a context of where someone wants you to text them. And then once you do that, you're just making your level of contact easier. Just like you said, we're trying different approaches. You have to try the different communication approaches, because some people are just going to be better at texting. It's easier for them. They work a lot. They'll respond quicker to text. And some people would just prefer email and they'd like to look at it late and not be bothered. And if you learn that, you'll, again, be ahead of the other people who are doing all the things that they don't want you to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Text messaging is very much like email probably, 10, 15 years ago, and, snail mail 20, 30 years ago, where if you got spam, because you get none, it's very apparent and you get very angry very quickly.
Yeah.
But I really think that's going to change in the next 5 years. I mean, the amount of people I see now that are always asking for, whether it's companies asking for our phone numbers and giving you 20% discounts, or it's, people that are, selling products or courses, or, now doing things through text messages. There's a couple more platforms now that have launched through like social media and stuff that are doing text messaging and just another way to build a list. So yeah, now in the next 2 to 3 years, you're definitely going to have to get permission to text people. Otherwise, I think most people will be turned off immediately.
Yeah.
I say that in 5 years, it's going to change. I think there's going to be way more spam in your text messaging.
There already is. I mean, I always respond, fuck you. And then they say, like, why are you saying that to me? I'm like, I didn't give you my number. Like, I'm on the do not call list. Like, I'll write back rude stuff. I don't care. So there's a lot that goes on in the forums about like, oh, I'm going to do a drip text campaign. I don't have permission. Or should I, find people on Facebook and send them a Facebook message? And I'm like, why would you do that if you don't have permission? Like, that's where they're talking to their family and friends. And this is where we're in a mode where it's like, well, I just need to find a way to contact them. And that's not how you make a deal. Like you can't. They're sitting there. Yeah, but they won't take my advice. I've been a technology expert for I've taught probably 75 classes on technology based with etiquette, like how you're supposed to do it the right way. You have to think of like how you would want it. Like I despise people texting me or emailing me without permission. So I don't know. Nobody likes it. Anybody who says like they like it, that's crazy.
That's funny that I have a friend who's developing like a technology platform that will, it's going to have a lot of phone numbers in it. And he said, inevitably someone will take this platform and there's, all different types of disclosure that you have to sign. Someone will take this platform and blast out text messages. Then they'll end up in jail because they're not supposed to do it.
Yeah.
But inevitably people will take the information the wrong way and use it the wrong way. And he could not be more clear about it by basically saying, guys, I'm telling you not to do it. It's not meant for that. It's meant for not only real estate investing, but for businesses. Like if you own a restaurant, you want to know all the people within a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. It doesn't mean you can just go blast text them but you want to know who your customer is going to be, whether it's a real estate investor, a business, a gym. You just want to know, like, if there's a restaurant down the block from you and you don't know it's there and they don't know you're there, that's why he's putting it together. But he's like, I guarantee you someone will try and sue me and someone will end up in jail because they take, they download a full county of phone numbers and they start blasting out random text messages.
Yeah, but that maybe will bring us full circle on the conversation because it brings back exactly what we were talking about in the beginning. That's just being lazy. If you get a vetted list of numbers, you should be like, how am I going to make a good first approach? It's not with text. You call, see if you can make a relationship.
Set up a meeting.
But they're just saying like, oh, I have 10,000 emails. I'll just send the same stupid so it's like when an agent sends the same email out to the whole database when it's just one property in one town and 99% of the list aren't interested in that town. So why are you sending it to everybody?
I like when they're not even sophisticated enough and they BCC everybody. So it's not even sent to anybody. It's like, okay, why are you sending me industrial properties in fucking Michigan?
Right.
Why am I even getting that email?
It's always laziness. And that goes to what we talked about in the beginning of why people think they can do this real estate investment or be an agent. That most people think it's easy. And you only find out that it's hard because people like us will say like, it's not as easy as you think. Like you're not going to like going into a property with dog shit all over it, but you're going to go in because that's going to be a good deal because no one else wants to go in.
That's what I say. The worst part of my job is going through due diligence with bed bugs, and you walk into 250 units and it's
apartment buildings are disasters. And those are only things that people are looking like, oh, it's a 10-unit building. This isn't going to be that hard. What? You've never had a property. A 10-unit building, you're going to be jumping off a bridge in like a week because everybody's going to be calling you.
Yeah, you have a furnace in the basement that's 70 years old and it's cast iron and it breaks and good luck.
Yeah. But I just think that there's just the reluctance, and it's not millennials because it's really like a split up. Millennials get a bad rap because half of them are super, super motivated and the other half are doing, 4-hour work week things, which I'm not against at all. I think that the idea of it makes sense, but we're all not going to Bali to do deals from our laptop. It doesn't work like that. You still have to put the work in to know about the whole business to be good at it. And then sure, maybe later you can go do it from the beach. I've closed deals from vacation, but it's because I'm slaved away at data mining. And just like you said, your friend's company, it's built to get data. And because you have all the data doesn't mean you should use it in the wrong ways.
Yes.
You use it to figure out the best way to make a relationship. And the people who aren't focused on relationships and real estate are all short-term thinkers. It's the people who they sell a house to someone and then they never follow up with them. They lose the listing. They lose all their friends. It's like, you dummy, that's 5 deals in one every time if you do a good job.
When I was renting houses or renting apartments in the city and selling buildings in the city, I would always I'd get him a custom personalized gift after the fact. And I made sure that I wanted to be a little bit different than everybody else and then follow up. And the amount of business you could stop marketing if you just followed up with tenant would rent a $2,500 apartment and I'd give them custom wine glasses with painting. My friend did paint, just different shit. And it's oh, you rented this apartment to my friend. You rented this apartment. Just little things like that. People, it's oh, they got the deal. And it's, that's the end of the day. You got to use the data and the follow-up is key and just being different. It's just, I think it's important.
The same in real estate, though. If you're running off market properties, like everyone says, like, how big's your buyer list? I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. I only need to know. I really only need 10 investors. That's like a max, really. If I know and people trust me and our relationship is good, I'm never going to have a deal that's not going to go anywhere.
Exactly.
I don't need to send it to 100 people and try to upbid. I'd rather get less from someone I know is going to close.
It's going to close
when they say they're going to close.
I say that all the time. It's everybody wants more, but there is something to be said about, if you know what people want and you only bring them what they want, you only need, like you said, 10 people. And if you find those products, the deal sells. You have no headaches. It's simple. And people want to overcomplicate things and make, I have 10,000 people in my buyers list. That's fucking great. 10 of those people are buying things.
Sounds terrible. First of all, buyers suck. They drive you crazy. Exactly. So, sure, when you're new, that's what you're going to do. But imagine you're an agent, like we said, and you just decide to work with investors and slowly you meet people who are flipping. You can't tell me that if you know 5 flippers who flip a lot, even if they do maybe 6 to 12 a year, and you can do all those listings because you'll give them, you give them all the data, and you're going to be crushing every single person in your office, and you're going to have 5 clients.
Yeah.
And that everybody tries to. The reason I left the business was I had too many leads, and no one would stop calling. My phone would ring from 6 a.m. till 11 at night, and now I'm doing everything the opposite way. I don't take phone calls. I operate on my own schedule when I want, and I react and respond when I'm ready to. And that sets the guidelines for what I'm going to do. And then I know that all I'm ever trying to do is whittle down my list to as few people as possible. So if I'm however many investors, I want to see their proof of funds. If they don't want to give me a proof of funds, I'm going to need it eventually. So if you tell me you're a verified investor, show me the proof of funds now, even when I don't have a property. So when I find one, I know you're going to close it. And people get reluctant to do all these things, but I really think less is more in every aspect of our lives, including leads. Leads would just take up your time and waste your time all the time. It's good leads that matter, and that's 1%.
Yep, quality over quantity in real estate. I think now when you're seeing property, see as much as you can, but when you're actually getting down to doing it, I've done a lot of shitty deals, just head banging deals. Today, where I sit today, I would say quality over quantity all day long, because it's going to make your life. You can go to bed at night and not have heartburn 24/7.
Yeah, and you have to do the quantity to get to quality,
exactly.
And that's where people don't get it. They just I'm gonna just make it easy. You got to put in the work, and so you can say these are my boundaries. But if you want to grow an investment business or an agent business, you're gonna have to give up some of that in the beginning. You have to hustle, and you have to do a good job.
Yep, upfront, there's definitely quantity. But as you grow and progress, you want to try and eliminate that. You want to work with the people you like working with, because it's not brain damage when you're getting to the finish line.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's awesome place to wrap it up. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. I think
thank you.
Ton of knowledge and insight and stuff like that. Where can people learn more about you, get in touch with you, stuff like that?
Yeah, so my off-market business is www.streamlined with a D at the end .properties. That's the website. It's .properties. And I digital minimalist. I have no social media. I don't market on social media. My Instagram is Trust Greene with an E at the end. That's my only social. And just doing that took an enormous amount off my plate in real estate, thinking the same of how we just finished. I don't need to market a deal. I know who I'm going to bring the deal to, or I'm going to buy it myself. And all the social media and everything, it was just taking up extra time that I could be researching properties and looking at new areas and beating everyone to the punch. So that's it. And you can always find me on Bigger Pockets. I'm all over the forums chastising people.
Perfect. Awesome. We will link all that in the show notes. But thank you again so much for coming on. This was great.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.